Alrighty, now that we're recording, my name is Will Hull, and this will be Unit 2 from Nevada for the Division C for the National We the People Finals. In a moment, I'll have the judges introduce themselves, followed by the students, and then we'll begin the hearing. Students will deliver a 4-minute prepared statement, followed by 8 minutes of judge follow-up questions. My microphone will be muted during this session. However, I will be holding up the 1-minute sign, as well as the time sign to indicate those periods of time during the hearing. I also suggest for those of you who are in Zoom here, up in the very top right-hand corner, there's a view option where you can switch it to gallery view so that you can see me okay when I'm holding up those signs. And at the conclusion of the hearing, the judges will provide some brief feedback and then we'll conclude. At this point, I will go ahead and pass the microphone over to the judging panel for them to introduce themselves.
Hello and welcome and congratulations. I'll begin with my introduction. My name is Tim Igo. I am a lawyer, writer, and magazine editor, and I work at the State Bar of Arizona in Phoenix. I'll turn to Judge Drummond.
Welcome, Nevada. My name is Nick Drummond. I'm an assistant professor of political science at Black Hills State University in South Dakota.
Hello, my name is Chuck Dunlap, and I'm president and CEO of the Indiana Bar Foundation in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And if I could ask the teammates to introduce yourselves.
Hello, we are Unit 2 from Reno High School. My name is Penny Smurden, and I will be attending the University of Nevada.
My name is Jody Hoover, and I will also be attending the University of Nevada.
My name is Jason Pitha, and I'll be going to San Diego State. Our teacher is Mr. Richard Clark, and our unit coach is Mr. Sam Macaluso.
Wonderful. Well, welcome again. And we're looking forward to this conversation about Unit 2, Question 2. And what I'll do is I'll read the question into subparts. And at the conclusion of that, you're free to begin. One founder claimed that representatives should refine and enlarge the public views by passing them through the medium of a chosen body of citizens whose wisdom may best discern the true interest of their country. Do you agree or disagree with this claim? What alternative systems of representation were considered by the founders? And what alternative systems of representation, if any, should be considered in the 21st century?
When framing the Constitution, the delegates created a system of checks and balances on each branch of government at the national and state level. Like a boxer in a match, these checks are used against an opponent. As Madison stated in Federalist 51, it is not possible to give to each department an equal power of self-defense. We agree with Madison's idea of refining the public views by passing them through a chosen body of citizens. And we also agree that their wisdom may best discern the true interest of their country. So we need to provide a better means of representation while also giving the government more self-defense.
Coming into the Philadelphia Convention, the delegates relied on their feet, fighting for each of their alternative plans for representation to be the new base of the Constitution. In one corner was James Madison, presenting his Virginia plan, a national government with a bicameral legislature and proportional representation in both houses, advocating for more representation for states with larger populations.
In the other corner, William Patterson, presenting his New Jersey plan, which mirrored the Articles of Confederation in states having equal representation and a unicameral Congress, advocating for equal representation of small states. While Roger Sherman and his Connecticut Compromise ultimately won the round, elements of representation from both Madison and Patterson's plans became the foundation for the Constitution.
Another alternate system of representation considered by the founders but not included in the Constitution came from the Virginia Plan. This provision made members of the House of Representatives subject to recall. While the House can punish its members for disorderly behavior and with the concurrence of 2/3 expel a member in Article 1, Section 5, there is no way for the people to recall members of the House.
Madison's recall provision would have taken away one of the legislature's self-defenses and would have refined the public views, passing them through the people. Today, there are currently 39 states which have provisions allowing for recall of certain elected officials at the local and/or state level, but not the federal level.
An alternative system for reconstructing the House of Representatives in the 21st century is the Wyoming Rule. Developed by Alexander Kirk in a college thesis at the University of Richmond, this provision would make the standard representative to population ratio be that of the smallest entitled unit, currently the state of Wyoming. By dividing the population of every other state with that of Wyoming, it would increase the amount of representatives in other states.
For example, based on population projections, applying the Wyoming rule to the 2021 census would result in 577 seats, with 43 states seeing an increase compared to a House size of 435. California would gain 17 more seats and Nevada would gain 1 more. Although the composition of the Electoral College would change, it would more closely align with the population of the states, rendering the states more representative, and would require no constitutional change in Article 1, Section 2, or Article 2, Section 1. The number of representatives would change every 10 years with the new census, based on the state with the smallest population. The people would gain more power over their boxing opponent, the federal government.
We also need to give the states a counterpunch. Article 1, Section 3 establishes that state legislatures choose its senators. However, with the passing of the 17th Amendment, that blow is taken away and given to the people in the form of direct election. If the 17th Amendment were repealed, it would give back the power to the states to best align with the true interests of federalism.
With the Wyoming rule giving people more power in terms of representation and the repealing of the 17th Amendment giving self-defense back to the states, the boxing match would end in a draw. Because we agree with Madison that we need to refine public views by passing them through a body of citizens, the Wyoming plan would be an alternative. And because we also agree that those citizens can best discern the interests of the country, the repealing of the 17th Amendment would be that added counterpunch. This boxing match would be as famous as the Reno fight of the century, Jack Johnson versus Jack Jeffers, equal in weight and equal in self-defense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this time, we'll have opportunity of some questions. Let me turn to Judge Drummond to kick us off.
Thank you, and well done, Nevada. I want to take us back to the American constitutional debate. As you know, the Anti-Federalists were very critical of the Constitution, and that included the modes of representation associated with that Constitution. In particular, they were critical of Madison's trustee model, advocating instead for the delegate model. What do you think about this debate? Could you explain the debate to me and what side of that debate you would take?
Well, Edmund Burke once stated, if a local constituent were to form a hasty opinion evidently opposite to the real good of the community, the member of that place ought to stray as far from any endeavor to give it effect. And that basically means if the people were to make a bad decision that would result in consequences affecting other areas and other parts of that place, then the representative chosen should be wise enough to make the decision not to represent his constituents, but to represent the best interests of the country.
And Anti-Federalists believed that their representatives should be agents of the people, such as Millington Smith. He believed that. And so this debate should be about whether or not they trust the representatives to have wisdom, as James Madison argued they should. We believe that they should have the wisdom to best represent the people because the people are not trustworthy enough to represent themselves.
Thank you.
You mentioned the Wyoming rule, which is very interesting, and I appreciate your discussion of that. What would the role of the Senate be if you were looking primarily, it sounds like, the House of Representatives and changing the representation based on that? Is the Senate still, under your theory, similar, other than potentially having the senators appointed as they were prior to the 17th Amendment?
Yeah, so with regards to the House of Representatives, what we're trying to do is go back to the federal system where we are a Republican democracy. And so we want to increase the House of Representatives, but also give power back to the state, which is repealing the 17th Amendment. In regards to the 17th Amendment, it would allow for, with this indirect election, it would allow for more civic engagement because people would have to understand their local representatives that they would send off to those to states to be elected. And so it would increase civic engagement in other states. And this would go along with the more people in the House of Representatives and the 17th Amendment repeal.
Structurally, if you don't, go ahead.
And this ties back to the Great Compromise, where we wanted a balance between the Articles of Confederation, in which the states had all of the power, and a tyrannical government in which the federal government had all of the power. So this would give the power, this would make the Senate representative of the states and the House representative more representative of the people.
As Federalist 62 argues that there needs to be a link between the state and the federal government, this would allow for any bill passed to have the consent of the people through Congress and the consent of the states in the Senate.
Is the role of the states the same now, or should it be, as it was in the founding, with people moving around and sort of, does the state still have that same identity and that same need for that level of representation from a small state like Nevada and others to essentially have the same weight as a large state with a much larger population? And I know that's what the House is to do, but obviously you have to get it through both chambers.
Well, in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Anti-Federalists would be happy with the states taking the lead on dealing with the pandemic and what is best for their people. So in the Anti-Federalist point of view, the states and the balance between the state governments and the federal government would be good.
We can also look to cases such as Gonzalez v. Raich, in which the federal government goes against what the state wanted in regards to medical marijuana, and then also Reynolds v. Sims in regards to the redistricting. The federal government had to overstep there because it went against their 14th Amendment, the 14th Amendment rights. So then there is a discrepancy between how the states function and the federal government the oversight on the states.
Thank you.
Let me ask about the Electoral College. Given your thesis, I'm guessing I know the answer, but despite recent broad conversations to eliminate it, do you think the Electoral College still helps curb local self-interest and filter the people's votes to ensure that capable people are elected?
Well, that is what it is meant to do, and we do believe that it should not be abolished, rather it should be changed to be more representative, such as Maine and Nebraska's system. It is not a winner-take-all system, and if that were adopted in all 50 states, then the voters in each state would be better represented because their votes would count toward electoral votes.
I agree with my colleague. Right now the Electoral College is a winner-take-all systems between the states, and so changing these systems to allow to the system of Maine and Nebraska would allow for third-party candidates to have chances or would have a leg up in terms of these races, because now that it is not a winner-take-all system, they have the potential to secure some electoral college votes, giving them more of a chance in presidential campaigns.
And to bring the Electoral College down to a more local level, and to increase representation, we can look at the case of US v. Wong Kim Ark, which under the Fifth Amendment states that any person, so any non-citizen that is living in the United States, has the same exact rights as a citizen living in the United States. And so with this, we can make it so that those non-citizens are able to vote in local elections, allowing for more representation in that in the local like the Electoral College on a local level.
Thank you.
I wonder if we could go back to the question of democracy. I think it was Jody who said the people cannot be trusted. There's something in that statement that elites can be trusted. And I look at the last 2 decades of politics. I look at the Iraq War, I look at the Great Recession, I look at more recent events. Do you think elites can and should be trusted?
It's not necessarily elites that we're trusting. The people are entrusting their representatives. They're voicing out their opinions to entrust representatives to make the best decisions for them and for their government. It is not necessarily elites that they're voting for. It's the candidates that they're voting for and entrusting with the ideals to make the best decisions for them.
And also in a letter from Thomas Jefferson, he stated that every 19 years or every generation, we should have a review of the Constitution. So in regards to your elite question, we could every 19 years bring these people together to create a constitutional convention to revise the Constitution in light of current events. So it is important to be trustful of elites, and also in regards to the Constitution and also representation.
Perfect. It's like, that was excellent. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone, and now we'll have an opportunity to have a little conversation with you and give you a little feedback. I enjoyed that dialogue very much. I appreciated the metaphor of the boxing match, and the local tie it has for you. So that's perfect. It did make me think a little bit about, and maybe you didn't want us to go there, but I started thinking about the troubling aspects of partisan politics today. Thinking about the founding fathers in a boxing match, I mean, it was an appropriate metaphor, but at the same time, it might replicate some of the problems we're seeing today in our own populace that can't agree on what color the sky is. But I still think it was effective. You had a strong thesis, consistently held, very robust position, well articulated, and I thought you did very, very well. Thank you so much. We'll turn to maybe Judge Dunlap.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. The boxing metaphor was very nice as a framework to talk about the various aspects of your argument. And the idea of recalling House members, I thought was an interesting idea as well. And, you know, where the power lies as to, you know, the electorate. And that's an interesting idea. And certainly the Wyoming rule, the idea of, you know, adjusting the House of Representatives was another unique perspective on this. And I guess one of the things that I guess kind of struck me a little bit was one of the comments that somebody made about, you know, the same rights for citizens versus non-citizens, and the understanding of how far does that go, and then at what point does citizenship matter, and you know, where are those lines? And I thought that was an interesting idea. If you want true representation from all the people in that particular district, regardless of citizenship, or is citizenship something that is relevant within that, some level of differentiation of rights based on that or not. So I thought you obviously had a really good depth of knowledge and understanding of this topic, and I really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you.
I echo the sentiment of my colleagues. What I noticed is that there wasn't a weak member on the panel. All of you were very strong, and that showed. You had important things to say. You said it well. I thought you fielded the Q&A questions, did a very good job with that. The throwing in of Burke was a surprise, but I think that was helpful and instructive. But you also were able to nail it with the anti-federal stuff. And then I threw you the curveball in the end about elites, and I thought you handled that as well. So nice job. Very nice job.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll let the judges and the panel thank each other, and feel free to do that at this time.
Thank you again.
Thank you, judges, so much for your
Congratulations again.
time, and really appreciate your feedback.
Good luck.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording at this time.